Tech crazes that failed to change the world. Hello and welcome back to another video here on UpTech channel. Every once in a while, someone comes along with the world's greatest inventions, or so they say. New devices come about all the time, but few have the societal impact of actually changing the world. In this video, we'll be taking a look at those devices that failed to change the world. Stay tuned and watch the video right till the end. Flying tanks. Believe it or not, there was once a time when people thought it was a good idea to strap a couple of wings to an armored tank and use it in combat. Flying tanks were designed to take the firepower of armored combat and combine it with the tactical use of air power. But as you probably can guess, it didn't work. Essentially, they were glider wings attached to tanks, and they could be towed or carried beneath an airplane. They would then be released and glide into combat to support infantry operations on the battlefield. They were marginally effective, but various projects never achieved much success. Instead of changing the way humanity fights in war, the concept was scrapped shortly after World War II, though the Soviet Union continued developing the concept well into the 1970s. Video phones. Video call was something that was imagined way before it became common today. By the time such a product was available, it was far too expensive and few could afford it. The first device cost $1,500 for a single phone, and the service cost nearly $100 a month, making it unaffordable for consumers and can iffy purchase for a company. By the turn of millennium, companies were still working hard to transmit video communications over telephone lines, but the technology was still expensive and difficult to perfect. This ultimately led to an overall abandonment of dedicated video telephony over phone lines. In its place came different video teleconferencing means using data networks and the internet to make calls. Cryptocurrency. Okay, hear us out here. Cryptocurrency has been a thing since 2008 with the introductions of Bitcoin. It looked as if it might be a world-changing invention. Cryptocurrencies are a form of a digital currency that exists without central bank or administrator. In the beginning, Bitcoin weren't worth very much real-world money, but in 2016, their value shot up to $2,900. And within 5 years, they peaked in value at $19,511, though that value quickly crashed. Cryptocurrency theoretically could change the way people conduct international business. Still, the anonymous nature of mining and spending them has really only benefited criminal organizations. Even though it is a decentralized monetary system, it's still susceptible to the same problems as a traditional currency, including counterfeiting, market manipulations, and more. Cryptocurrencies are still around, and there are many more than just Bitcoin. Still, it's unlikely to change international monetary systems for a myriad of reasons, at least in the near future. The heliomotor. In 1900, Dr. William Culver created a device called the heliomotor, which he believed would revolutionize the energy industry. He was inspired by the legend of Archimedes' heat ray. He created a device to utilize the sun's energy to be used in other applications. He believed he had solved the use of the sun rays, having created a device that concentrated sunlight into a mirror. They would target that energy onto bricks or water, storing the energy and generating power without using electricity. The debut of his heliomotor was met with excitement and people lined up to invest in his idea. Leland Stanford once told Culver, "The steam engine made a great revolution, and this will make another." Since nobody has a heliomotor running every device in their home, it clearly didn't revolutionize energy in any way. It wasn't efficient, far less than other means of generating and storing energy. While the heliomotor never changed the world, the concept has evolved over the years. Present-day systems that use mirror to reflect sunlight into concentrated solar power plants are viable, though they are far more advanced than what Culver created. Daylight motion picture. When you go to the movies, you find yourself sitting in a large theater, and then only significant source of light is the powerful lamp in the projector. That light is reflected off the screen, and it works best when there are no other sources of light. Turning one on would wash out the image, making it harder to see. Despite this fact, there was a time when people thought it was best to watch the movie in daylight out of a need for security. In 1910, that's exactly when some people tried to do with daylight motion pictures. It was a trend that raced around the United States, and it spread like wildfire. The concept utilized darker screens, brighter and stronger projectors, and the misapprehensions that movies needed to be enjoyed in the full light of day. California even passed a law stipulating that movie theaters were required to sufficiently illuminate their theaters so that patrons could see one another. Of course, the craze didn't last for very long. Projectionists complained that the movie didn't look good in well-lit rooms. Various other problems caused daylight motion pictures to become a thing of the past, ultimately changing nothing as darkened theaters returned. Cinerama. Long before IMAX was a thing, the best way to view a widescreen formatted film was through a process called cinerama. It was developed by the motion picture industry to counter the growing trend of television. The first time it was used was back in 1952 when the movie This Was Cinerama was premiered for a crowd of cheering and enthusiastic people on Broadway. The new format projected the video onto 3 large, deeply curved screens, making for a massive image. It was touted as the future of movie watching. Still, it never managed to take a hold of the marketplace, and it eventually fell into obscurity. The problem, at least initially, was that it required 3 projectors and 3 projectionists to perfectly synchronize their projections at the exact time. If that wasn't achieved, it wouldn't work correctly. So Cinerama needed a lot of people and money to operate. Most movie theaters weren't willing to upgrade due to the cost. By the time digital technology made it possible to link the projectors without the need of multiple people, it was too late. There are still some Cinerama locations in around the country, but it's more of a novelty than a viable world-changing means of watching movies. Radioactive products. Back in the day, when radium was discovered, it was widely believed that the substance was capable of doing everything from growing hair to increasing male virility. There was a time when radium could be found in everything from lipstick to chocolate, and as we know, that was a terrible idea. Radium becomes the early 20th century buzzword in much of the same way people buy things for sporting, non-GMO or organic today. The product was thought to change the world, and it did, just not for the better. Radium was put into butter and so much else, that by 1925, the New York Times ran the headline, "Radium disease found, has killed 5. The newly dubbed radium necrosis was clearly a dangerous problem, and radium quickly flew off the shelves and out of consumers' reach. The discovery of radium was certainly a world-changing event, but the various products containing it managed only to hurt people. Radium continued to be used in the marketplace until the 1960s. The last products to feature radium were luminescent timepieces. Flying cars. People have been imagining a world filled with flying cars since before automobiles were even invented. Over the years, there have been some legitimate attempts at creating them. Various prototypes were developed in the early 20th century, but they never managed to change the world. In 1940s, Henry Ford said, "Mark my word, a combinations airplane and motor car is coming. You may smile, but it may come." He wasn't exactly wrong either. The Aero car was flying through the skies by the end of the decade. That vehicle never entered productions, and neither did any other prototype. The biggest problem with flying cars has to do with people. Most of us aren't trained to fly a plane, much less a car with wings or jets that keep it aloft. Because of this, no government has made it legal for a person to fly about the country without serious regulations. The Aero car, for example, was only able to fly from airports and couldn't simply take off from a highway. The dream is still alive for many investors, and every so often, a new flying car makes headlines around the world. In September 2020, a Japanese country tested a new manned flying cars for the first time, and while it hasn't changed the world, it theoretically could one day. With that, we wrapped up our video. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next video.